While walking in the forest, a lady named Little Red Riding Hood is approached by a witch named Barbara, who offers to help her change her shoes. The girl is not interested in wasting any time because she still has a long walk ahead to a nearby country, but Barbara insists that her shoes are ugly. She also adds that in the nearby country, beauty is the only thing that matters, and ugly people are often treated badly. Red Riding Hood eventually has no choice but to let Barbara work her magic, but it only turns out to get her shoes muddy. She gets angry at this, and as she cleans her shoes in a nearby river, Barbara mentions that her ability to make beautiful shoes still needs some work. As the girl complains about what Barbara did, her shoes are then carried away by the current in the river. She tries to follow it, but the currents are too fast and she can't catch up. She then leaves Barbara and starts walking with her barefoot until she sees a lady named Cinderella wearing her shoes. Red Riding Hood approaches her while she's burying something in the ground. She asks for her shoes, and Cinderella happily returns them. As the two girls then start talking, Cinderella says she was burying her pet pigeon. Red Riding Hood feels sorry for her, and just then, she gets a vision that suggests that Cinderella is being bullied. She asks about it, and Cinderella says that her stepmother and stepsisters, Anne and Margot, have been wicked to her. She asks how Red Riding Hood knew what she was experiencing, and she says she could tell from the kind of dress Cinderella is wearing. Cinderella then explains that her stepmother gets her to dress like that because ugly people are not taken seriously in the country. She also remembers how she is treated like a slave, and how Margot also killed her pigeon. Cinderella then mentions an upcoming ball at the king's palace and how she would have liked to attend it if she wasn't ugly. Since it's a ball where the prince will pick a lady to be his wife, Red Riding Hood asks Cinderella if she would like to be married to a stranger, but she says she doesn't mind. She also says she likes the prince because he doesn't discriminate against ugly people. Cinderella, however, adds that even though she wants to go, she doesn't have any good clothes, and that Margot also threw her slippers away. Red Riding Hood sees some cuts on Cinderella's legs, and when she asks about it, Cinderella says she got the cuts from the thorns in the forest while she was picking raspberries for Margot. As the two girls then wonder what to do next, so that Cinderella can get what she wants and go to the ball, Barbara shows up again. She offers to help Cinderella change her clothes, and after she does this, she also helps with Red Riding Hood's dress. However, when it comes to getting them shoes, Barbara says she's not too good at it. Just then, her niece Tekla shows up and offers to use her magic to provide the girls with glass slippers. She tells them that the magic will only last for 24 hours, and that the shoe only fits the first person to ever wear it. After Tekla is done talking, Barbara transforms a rat into a human named Paul, after which she also turns a pumpkin into a carriage that will get them to the ball. With everything set, Paul leads them down a road leading to the palace. While in the carriage, Cinderella thanks Red Riding Hood for her help because she never thought she could attend the ball. Together, they also realize that they have 6 hours left before the magic wears off. Suddenly, Paul stops the carriage and says he has hit someone. As the ladies come out to see who it is, Cinderella recognizes the man as Mr. Hans, the royal hairdresser. Red Riding Hood checks on him and discovers that he is dead. Cinderella feels sad and blames herself for it, saying that nothing bad would have happened if she hadn't made them take her to the ball. Red Riding Hood tells her not to blame herself, and Paul also says he'll take responsibility for it because he was the one riding the carriage. Just then, Red Riding Hood gets a vision, and this makes her see that Hans's boots are muddy. She suggests that the only way his boots could have gotten so muddy was if someone dragged him to the scene. After contemplating what to do next, Red Riding Hood covers Hans's body and says it's the best thing to do because it will be unfair to Cinderella if they don't go to the ball. She also tells Paul to ensure that he cleans any trace of blood on the carriage when they get to the palace. Following this, they continue their journey, and after arriving at the palace, the girls make their way inside. After a while, Cinderella looks scared as she spots her stepmother and Anne, but Red Riding Hood says no one will be able to recognize her because of Barbara's magic. Meanwhile, Anne is concerned that Margot is nowhere to be found, but her mother says she's sure nothing bad has happened. She tells Anne to focus on impressing the prince and that she's happy to see her daughter making the sacrifice of cutting her hair short because Hans said the prince likes short hair. Even though Anne is not too happy with this, her mother tells her everything will be fine and that since Hans was the one who made her hair, then the prince would love it. Shortly after, the king and his son, Gilbert, are welcomed into the room. After thanking everyone for coming to the ball, the king tells his son to go on to make his choice among the ladies in the room. Even though Gilbert doesn't seem to like this, his father insists, and as he walks through several ladies, including Anne, he eventually picks Cinderella to dance together. Red Riding Hood is happy for her new friend, and as they're dancing, Gilbert tells Cinderella that she's beautiful. She looks happy to hear this, but their time together is suddenly interrupted by a guard who comes in to share some terrifying news with the king. Just then, the king announces that his men have found Hans's dead body near the road leading to the castle. He says that there were marks on the front and back of Hans's head, and it could mean that someone hit him with their carriage on the way to the palace. He then instructs his guards to check everyone's carriage for signs of blood. Cinderella looks worried after the guards head out, but Red Riding Hood says she's sure Paul must have cleaned the carriage. Shortly after, the head of the king's guards, Lord Chamberlain, returns to inform the king that no traces of blood were found on any of the carriages. He, however, says that from Hans's autopsy, it was revealed that the wound in his back was inflicted earlier than the one in front. This leads the king to believe that Hans might have been killed before a carriage hit him. Chamberlain also adds that after checking Hans's house, his men found a stone with blood on it, and this could mean that he was killed at his house. He also mentions that they found some locks of hair that Hans had cut from some of the women at the ball. He then says Hans was rumored to have a habit of cutting people's long hair, and that one of the women at the ball might have gotten angry and killed him. Meanwhile, the king asks for the ladies to be brought out, and 5 ladies, including Anne, are selected as suspects. As Chamberlain then says that one of the 5 ladies killed Hans, Red Riding Hood interrupts him and asks if she can say something. The king lets her speak, and she says she doesn't think Chamberlain's theory is right, and there has to be more to it. She then tells Anne to narrate what happened earlier in the day, and she says Hans forcefully cut her hair while saying that Gilbert loved short hair. All the other ladies say the same thing, and this forces the king to ask his son if he truly loves short hair. However, Gilbert says Hans only used that to lie to the ladies because he couldn't deal with the fact that people had beautiful long hair that wasn't made by him. As everyone is left shocked by this, Anne suddenly mentions that she overheard something while she was in the palace earlier that day. She says that after her mother helped her sneak into the palace so she could speak to Gilbert before the ball, she heard him having a heated argument with Hans. The king asks his son about this, and Gilbert confirms that he was only arguing with Hans after discovering his bad habits. Gilbert also mentions that he wanted to report Hans, but he was blackmailed by him, who threatened to tell everyone what he did. The king tells his son to explain further, and Gilbert confesses that Hans was blackmailing him because he saw when he threw the king's crown into the trash a while back. The king is shocked to hear this, but Gilbert says he only did it because his father didn't approve of his relationship with a servant girl named Remy, who eventually disappeared. The king says he knows nothing about Remy's disappearance, but Gilbert doesn't believe this. Before things escalate, Red Riding Hood asks Gilbert if Hans left the palace immediately. Gilbert says that after Hans threatened him, he also asked for the royal mirror to be delivered to him later that day. However, Gilbert says he didn't send it to Hans because he felt ashamed and eventually decided not to let Hans get his hands on a royal treasure. Because Gilbert had a motive to kill Hans, he is labeled as a suspect, but he tells his father that he didn't do it. Just then, the king asks where he was during the day, and Gilbert says he took a walk to a nearby hill. The king doesn't believe his son, and he gets his guards to arrest him. As he's being taken away, Cinderella approaches Gilbert and tells him that she believes he didn't do it. He looks happy to hear this, but is then led out of the palace. Cinderella goes to meet Red Riding Hood to do something, but she says there's nothing she can do. As she then looks around, she finds a thorn on the floor where Gilbert passed, and this gives her an idea. Almost immediately, a lady wearing ugly clothes comes into the palace and says she can testify that Gilbert was actually on the hill during the time Hans was killed. This makes the king rethink his decision, but as he asks for Gilbert to be brought back, Anne's mother says the ugly lady shouldn't be trusted because she could be doing it for money. A few other people support her, and the king tells his guards to take the lady out of the palace. Red Riding Hood then asks the king if Gilbert's clothes were custom-made. He says it's the first time his son is wearing the clothes, and with this, she brings out the thorn as evidence that Gilbert was on the hill, because there are a lot of thorns on the way leading to the hill. Gilbert is vindicated due to this, and the guards then bring him back. After this, the king then says, "Sorry for keeping everyone at the palace for so long." As he says they can leave, Red Riding Hood sees that they only have 5 minutes before the magic wears off. She immediately informs Cinderella, and the two of them run out, even though Gilbert tries to get them to wait. Cinderella trips and loses one of her glass slippers, but but she eventually enters the carriage to leave the palace. Meanwhile, Gilbert sees her missing glass slipper and picks it up. Elsewhere, the magic wears off, and everything returns to normal for Cinderella and Red Riding Hood. However, Red Riding Hood sees that Cinderella's other glass slipper hasn't changed. After a brief walk to Cinderella's house, Cinderella allows Red Riding Hood to spend the night. A while later, Red Riding Hood hears something outside, so she goes to check. She eventually meets Margot, who asks for help because she's trying to escape from the king's guards. When Red Riding Hood asks what she did, Margot says she killed Hans. She then explains how she got a letter from Hans, saying he wanted to fix her hair for the ball. After she gets there, she gets knocked out twice, and when she wakes up, she sees Hans's dead body, as well as a stone in her hand. Even though she says she can't remember when she killed him, Margot says she just thinks it has to be her. She then confesses that she also dragged Hans out of the house and threw him in front of a carriage so that someone else could be blamed for the murder. As she's done narrating what happened, Chamberlain shows up with his men, and Red Riding Hood pushes Margot towards them, saying she's the killer. Margot looks disappointed, and as she's being taken away, a shiny object drops from her body. As Red Riding Hood picks it up and looks at it, Chamberlain shows up to thank her for helping to catch the killer. However, she says that Margot is innocent. She also adds that she only wants to teach Margot a lesson for always bullying Cinderella. Red Riding Hood then asks if Chamberlain can take her to Hans's house, and he agrees. When they get there, she looks around for a while and suddenly brings out the shiny object that fell from Margot's dress. She realizes that it's the broken heel from a glass slipper, which triggers a vision that makes her figure out who killed Hans. Following this, she asks if Chamberlain can help her with something else, and he agrees. The next day, Gilbert arrives at Cinderella's house with Chamberlain and his other guards. Gilbert says that he has been looking for the person who has the missing glass slipper, and he wants Cinderella to try it on so he can see if she is the one. Cinderella looks happy as she tries it on, but as it fits, Red Riding Hood shows up and accuses her of killing Hans. Cinderella looks confused, but Red Riding Hood explains further by saying that the glass slipper she just wore is the one she hid in her pigeon's grave. She then uncovers how she realized that Cinderella was the killer. She says that Cinderella had met earlier in the day with Hans, who offered to make her beautiful. However, when she got to his house, she realized that he had other intentions with her hair, so she hit him with a stone and killed him before he could do anything to her. Seeing this, she decides to frame Margot for it and sends a letter to her pretending to be Hans. After Margot arrived, Cinderella knocked her out almost immediately. However, Margot doesn't go unconscious completely, so Cinderella uses her glass slipper to get the job done, but she's unaware that the heel broke and dropped on Margot's dress. Because she knows that Hans was expecting a delivery from the prince, Cinderella decides to leave Margot there so that whoever makes the delivery will think Margot killed Hans. Unfortunately, the prince didn't send anything to Hans, so Margot had a lot of time to escape and also cover up the murder. Red Riding Hood says that when she first saw Cinderella, she was without shoes while burying something on her pigeon's grave. She also had several cuts on her legs, and even though she says she went to pick raspberries, there was nothing with her. She then summons Barbara and Tekla, who confirms that she gave Cinderella 2 pairs of glass slippers that day. With all her lies now exposed, Cinderella still attempts to tell one last one, but her glass slippers finally change to her normal shoes, and this confirms everything Red Riding Hood said. Gilbert then tells his guards to arrest Cinderella, and as she is taken away, Red Riding Hood calls on the prince to have a word. She asks him why he thought his father had sent Remy away from town, and he says nothing else made sense after she disappeared. Just then, she tells him that Remy was actually one of Hans's victims, and in the process of cutting her hair, he also gave her a scar that made her ugly. She also adds that Remy has since gone into hiding to avoid being seen, because she knows no one would let her marry Gilbert while looking ugly. However, Gilbert says he doesn't care, and Red Riding Hood then tells him that the lady wearing ugly clothes who defended him the other day at the palace is actually Remy. Red Riding Hood gets Chamberlain to bring her over, and after Gilbert sees Remy, he sounds happy and tells her he has been looking for her. However, she says she doesn't deserve him, and as she continues to reject his advances, Red Riding Hood convinces her to accept Gilbert's love. Remy then thinks about it, and as she agrees, Gilbert hugs her. Days later, Gilbert is now married to Remy, and Red Riding Hood is also honored for her efforts in helping the royal family. Just after Remy and Gilbert thank her for her service, Red Riding Hood looks happy as she walks away and leaves the country.